Dr. Rajaya, our Health Minister and Deputy Chief Minister, Mr. Reddy, Professor Velasco, Dr. Sorat, Ms. Soni, Dr. Banker, ladies and gentlemen. I am personally delighted to be here this afternoon, and what I like to tell you is why I am so happy to be here today. Infertility affects between 10 to 15% of couples of reproductive age around the world. And in India, as my friend Suresh Soni mentioned, we probably have about 25 million couples who are infertile. In fact, I dare say that there wouldn't be any large family in the country, anywhere else in the world, where there isn't somebody who is not fertile. I think you look into your own families, larger family, to try and find that someone who is not capable of having a child, a couple who is not capable of having a child. If we consider infertility as a disease, and there's no reason why we shouldn't consider it so, it is the most widely prevalent disease in the world. It's not hepatitis B, it's not HIV, it's infertility. In fact, I've always maintained that it should be covered by CGHS and all national health services everywhere around the world. Some cases it is, but in most cases it is not. Now today, as it turns out, that 85% of cases of infertility can be taken care of. And the biggest advance in this respect was made in 1978 when the first so-called test tube baby using the technique of in vitro fertilization was born through the efforts of Professor Bob Edwards, a very close personal friend of mine, and the late Dr. Steptoe, who was a gynecologist. And the first child born through IVF was Louisa Brown. This is the story of Louisa Brown, a book given to me by Bob Edwards many years ago, some 30 years ago. Whenever I am asked to speak on an occasion like this, I'm prompted, internally compelled in some ways to share with you the story of Bob Edwards, because it is an amazing story. It's full of poignant tales. The whole birth of Louisa Brown is an amazing story. I don't believe that any film that you might have seen will actually match the drama of this story. And I was a witness to it myself. Bob Edwards was not a medical doctor, he was a scientist, and he worked in Cambridge. Before that, he was National Institute of Medical Research in London, where I also spent some time. And then he moved to Cambridge when his mentor, a man called Bunny Austin, moved to Cambridge as the Darwin Professor of Animal Morphology in the physiological laboratories, very famous laboratory at the University of Cambridge. It is there that he worked out this technique of in vitro fertilization, first with working with cattle and then with human beings. Now the reason why I think this is a very poignant story is that it made world news. It made world news twice. It made world news in January of 1978 when Dr. Steptoe was convinced that Louisa Brown's mother, Leslie Brown, was actually pregnant. An amniocentesis had been done, and the pregnancy was normal, ultrasound was done, and then the world came to know that the first test tube baby is likely to be born. And I remember that in that month of January 1978, every newspaper in the world carried this as headlines. And of course, second was when she was actually born on 25th July 1978. Since that time, since the first test tube baby, Louisa Brown, whose picture I showed to you. 3 million children have been born through this technique and related techniques, for example, of intracytoplasmic sperm injection. Now, the tragic part of this story is that Bob Edwards received the Nobel Prize in 1910 for this discovery, but he died without being even aware of the fact that he actually had won the Nobel Prize. I'm not going to tell you the entire story. It was a very poignant story. I was in December 2012 at a meeting to celebrate his Nobel Prize in Cambridge, and we knew that he would not be able to attend that meeting. He actually didn't even go to Stockholm to receive the prize. I had written an article just after the prize was awarded to him that he will not be able to go and receive the prize himself. His wife went there, and the reason was that he was suffering from Alzheimer's. I think it's the only case in the history of science that a person, living person, received the highest honor in science and wasn't aware of the fact that he had received that honor. So whenever I'm invited to such an occasion, I feel like sharing this story with you, because the poignancy behind this story, I think, is something that would touch the hearts of all of us. This happened in 1978 in Europe. Another part of this story, which I think we all should know, is that about the same time, independently, an Indian scientist called Subhash Mukherjee actually had done the same thing. And the child that he had brought out through technique of in vitro fertilization, slightly modified technique than what Bob Edwards and Steptoe had used, was born. It's a great pity that he did not. This was not recognized by the government. Indian government didn't fight for it, and the prize. Otherwise, the Nobel Prize should have been shared with him. The first Indian test tube baby was born through the efforts of Anand Kumar and Indra Hinduja in Bombay, and that was a great event too in our history. The first fertility clinics in India were set up in the 1990s. In Hyderabad, the first infertility clinic was that of Mamta Dindayal. My colleague Chandana, who is here, and I were involved in setting it up. And since then, the number of these infertility clinics has multiplied. In 1995, we set up an organization in Hyderabad called the Medically Aware Responsible Citizens of Hyderabad, of which the vast majority of the medical fraternity in the city is a member or involved with it. And it was at one of the meetings of this organization that brought to our notice the extent of malpractice in infertility clinics which were sprouting up everywhere. And that led us to ask the government to set up a system for regulating and accrediting infertility clinics. This was done. The first meeting was held in 2000, and finally the bill was ready in 2012. It is now with the government. We hope that in the coming parliament sessions it will be passed. It took us 12 years to have that bill. The reason I am mentioning this is that the possibility of misuse of this technology today is immense, and one need to have commitment, total commitment to ethics, to be able to make sure that nothing wrong is actually done while we are practicing what we call assisted reproductive technologies. And the reason that I am very happy to be here is that I've known Dr. Banker for a very long time, and that his clinic that he had before it became a part of Nova IVI was one of the best that I have known in this country, and comparable with anyone that one can see outside India. So I'm personally thrilled that he is involved in setting up this clinic, because, as I said, it is very important that in this area of assisted reproductive technologies, we follow a certain code of ethics, which is outlined in this bill that I have talked about, with which I have been very closely concerned. I have chaired the committee that set up that prepared this bill. I am equally happy that I got to know Suresh Soni, another person who I believe is strongly committed to ethics and to the welfare of of people, taking care of health and medical requirements of people at the lowest possible cost. So I think this marriage of coming together of Manish Bankar, Suresh Soni, and our friends from Spain, I think has been an amazing coincidence and is a rare event. And I have no doubt that this getting together, this kind of a marriage of various kinds of experiences in India and outside is bound to be of great benefit to the country. I am delighted that we have this clinic set up in Hyderabad. Hyderabad has a very large number of clinics. In fact, almost every street has an infertility clinic. But the number of clinics that would satisfy the requirements of this ethics or professionalism are really very small. I believe that this country needs about 20,000 infertility clinics. That's what my estimate is. 20,000 good infertility clinics. So I hope that Suresh, that you, our friends from Spain, and Manish Bankar will set up a substantial number of these 20,000 clinics in the country.